Alrighty then, this is Thrown Abroad, Chapter 1, by Niarzero. The changeling hive was dark, wet, and smelly. A single changeling hesitantly trotted through it, having just been called by his queen for a reason he didn't know. All he knew was that it was urgent. It probably had something to do with the failed attempt at taking over Equestria just a few days prior. His flank still hurt from being thrown out by that love shield thing. Luckily it hadn't taken the changelings long to regroup after that, but the damage was already done. He scurried onto the throne room, where Queen Chrysalis sat. She didn't look very pleased.
"Ah, you must be number 37 of the Royal Guard,"
the queen said, more a statement than a question. Changelings didn't have names. They merely had a number and an occupation. He was number 37 of the Queen's Royal Guard, the very last number. Coincidentally, he was also ranked number 37. He nodded meekly.
"Yes, my queen. Do you know why I called you here?"
Queen Chrysalis stood up from her throne, which looked more like a glorified pile of rocks to the little changeling, and paced about.
"No, my queen. It's because you're to blame for our failure in Canterlot," she stated,
matter-of-factly. He was silent for a few seconds.
"Huh?"
he sputtered out.
But I was on guard. The only ponies I let through were those 6 elementy types, and you told us they weren't worth bothering."
"Exactly. One of them helped the Pink Princess, one of those foolish lovebirds, escape, and you didn't do anything about it. What do you have to say for yourself?" The queen stopped pacing about and cast a short glance at him. He was cowering like a little hatchling. Being called by the queen herself because you made a mistake meant that you were going to get some severe punishment, even if it wasn't your fault.
"You didn't even do anything,"
he thought.
"It's your fault as well."
He was about to voice his thoughts, but reminded himself the Queen, Chrysalis, probably had enough power to flatten him like a pancake. Or worse.
I was just,
He tried fumbling his way to a presentable excuse, but he couldn't come up with anything. The tall and slender queen raised a brow. "Nothing?" She raised a hoof and cast a bored look through its holes. "Then I suppose you will require punishment." The changeling flinched, but didn't say anything. She sat down on her throne again. "For disrupting our efforts to take over Equestria, and thus taking away a great source of nourishment for the entire hive, you are hereby banished," she stated shortly.
"Banished?"
he cried out.
"That's—"
He wanted to say impossible, but being the queen of all changelings, she probably had the power to throw him out of the hive, figuratively or literally.
I'm sorry. It wasn't my fault. I'll do better next time. I promise. Just please give me another chance."
The queen tisked. "A traitor, reduced to pleading. How sad. Any last words before you leave?" He sat frozen. He couldn't think of anything, nor did he particularly want to move from that spot. "Very well, then. I'll throw you out myself." Before he could react, he was picked up in Queen Chrysalis's magical grip and hoisted out of the cave. On the way, several changelings stared at him. Some waved at him, and some snickered. As he was levitated out of the hive, he pondered what he would do. He didn't have the foggiest idea. After he got set down, he'd probably find some place nearby the hive to live, in case they wanted him back. However, that plan was cut short, as for the second time in a few days, he was flung through the air, towards an unknown destination. Apparently the queen wanted him very far away. Very, very far away, as he noticed as he hurtled through the sky. He saw a forest pass below him, followed by some grasslands, then a village, a lake, and so on. He was vaguely aware of some loud noise. Oh yeah, he was screaming. That sort of happened when involuntarily flying at high speeds, he remembered. After a while, he had to stop screaming, in part because he was out of breath, in part because his throat was becoming as dry as sandpaper. Luckily, he'd started to slow down and lose altitude a bit. Well, that was depending on his definition of lucky. He was still going pretty fast, and he saw some mountains coming up in the distance. He hoped fervently. I think it's supposed to be feverently, unless fervently is an actual word. Derp. He hoped fervently that he couldn't hit them. High-speed projectiles and hard walls didn't mix very well. He was getting closer to the ground now. He seemed to be heading straight for some wild-looking forest, which seemed excellent. There were enough trees and bushes to cushion his fall, so he wouldn't have too many injuries. He swore he could even see a small village nearby. He was going at a fairly manageable speed now, which was within a hoof's reach of the trees. He grabbed one, and with more whiplash than he would have liked, managed to get a branch through one of the holes in his hooves. Sometimes great changeling philosophers and biologists pondered these seemingly useless holes in the legs of changelings. Now he knew. They were excellent for hanging onto branches! It was just too bad he didn't have a way to let go of the branch. He fidgeted around, but he couldn't dislodge the branch from his hoof.
Something help? I'm kinda stuck here,
he said to the empty forest, while dangling from the branch. There wasn't a living thing in sight. Would there even be animals in a forest like this? Maybe there were predators. He panicked, as he realized he probably shouldn't have called out. There probably weren't changelings around here. The only things that would come to this forest were fierce predators. Were fierce predators, who would see him as a tasty piñata, and ponies who would see him as a piñata to take some sweet revenge on. He swung himself about, trying to get his hoof on the branch it was stuck on, off the branch. As he stopped to catch his breath, he could hear a sound from above. A grumble? The beginning of a sort of roar. It sounded suspiciously like cracking wood. He cast a glance up and saw the branch breaking off right where it had held.
"Oh, crud,"
was all he managed to say before the branch broke, sending him hurtling through the air once more. This time, however, it took him only a short time to reach safe ground, although not before he had managed to fall head first due to his flailing. He hit the ground with a hard thud, taking some dirt with him. He dizzily stood up and stumbled about a bit, his eyes rolling in their sockets. He could see stars. Was it night? No, it was only morning. Maybe afternoon.
Silly 37. There aren't any stars in the day,
he thought to himself. He shook the dizziness off him and spat out the huge clump of dirt that had apparently collected in his mouth. Surrounding him were trees, bushes, a few flowers, and other things that couldn't talk or feel or communicate otherwise. He let out a short sigh.
What am I gonna do now?
Having few other options aside from sit here and starve, he decided to walk in the direction of the little village he had seen. With some luck, he could find some unsuspecting pony couple to feed on. He was, after all, a changeling. They only took love to survive, and they could eat other foods, but those wouldn't satisfy. He remembered sneaking away a slice of cake at the royal wedding. It was delicious, even though it didn't still his hunger. He found himself thinking about the Queen's accusation. It couldn't have been his fault that she failed in her plan to take over Equestria. While those ponies had been doing whatever it was that made them win. The Queen had been busy, gloating about her victory. He snorted. Stupid ponies. Stupid wedding. Stupid Queen.
We'll defeat you with the power of love because we're namby-pamby ponies. Wee!
He mused in a high-pitched voice.
How ridiculous,
he continued, in a deeper, somewhat feminine voice.
I'm going to let you continue what you're doing because I'm stupid.
At least mocking those ponies and his queen, or ex-queen, he realized, since he was thrown out of the hive, made him feel a little better. It wasn't long before he made it out of the forest. The walk had been easy and calm, but he certainly didn't want to go through the same forest at night. Not that he was afraid of the dark or anything. He was an incredibly brave changeling. So what if he was a bit jumpy? He had arrived at a stream of water at the edge of a forest. A little bit ahead was a bridge, and on the other side, lo and behold, a village.
Excellent,
he muttered to himself, licking his lips.
Now I just need a disguise.
Chapter 2. The changeling sat down and rubbed his front hooves together. A disguise is simple. Think of one, use your innate changeling magic, and presto! You look like a pony. He did so and peered into the river to check his appearance. The ripples in the water distorted his reflection a little, but he could clearly see a black face with a horn, 2 large, bright blue eyes, and 2 fangs. He blinked a few times.
That isn't what a pony looks like, he noted. That's just my regular appearance.
Baffled, he tried again, only to receive the same outcome.
What's going on? Changing is easy. I should be
He was rudely interrupted by a particular sound, the sound of a rumbling stomach, a very loudly rumbling stomach. Oh, Of course. He hadn't had any love to feed on for quite some time. He didn't have enough energy to disguise himself now. That complicated things a bit. Ooh. So if you don't feed enough, your means of feeding die. Ooh, that's tricky. I can see there's a lot of reason to keep that circulating. Time for plan B. Sneak into the village, and he hadn't actually figured out what to do once he got there. That would come later. For now, he had to improvise. He crossed the bridge and saw a sign that said, Ponyville ahead.
Ponyville? What a lousy and ridiculous name,
he thought. At least changeling hives made names like Hive 3.14 and Hive 07734 much easier. He came past a cottage that was made out of a hill? A tree? It looked preposterous. A yellow Pegasus with a pink mane and tail was tending to some animals around the house, singing some awful song about pets or something. It was a horribly sweet-sounding song, but the changeling could sense the love the Pegasus had for the animal she cared for. If he could change into an animal right now, it would have been easy pickings for a meal. However, bothering the Pegasus at the moment would be a bad idea, considering he still looked like a changeling. Who knew what her reaction would be? He didn't get the feeling that this pony would attack him, though. He also got the feeling he should recognize her from somewhere, but he couldn't remember from where. It probably wasn't important. Checking around the perimeter of the house, he found a basket with a large, tattered, light gray cloth in it. It was probably a bed for an animal of some kind, but it probably wouldn't mind if the changeling took the cloth.
Might make a good cloak, if I can find something to secure it with.
There! Now, don't eat too fast, every pony, he heard the Pegasus say, although very softly. If you'll excuse me, I'm going to feed the little animals inside the house now, okay?
The changeling decided to leave the house. He didn't want to get caught, nor did he want to get closer to the source of that awful singing. Further down the road, he reached an apple orchard named Sweet Apple Acres, surrounded by a long white fence. The name Sweet Apple Acres itself was already horrid enough to turn him away from it. He was about to continue toward the village, but the sound of two talking ponies made him jump into a nearby bush. Silently, he watched the two. One of them was a cyan Pegasus with a messy, rainbow-colored mane dew, and a pair of sunglasses on her muzzle. She was flying around another pony, an orange pony with a cowgirl hat on her blonde mane and small red bands in her mane and tail. These two ponies seemed familiar to him, just like the Pegasus he saw earlier.
I'll tell you, Applejack, I bet you no pony has ever seen another pony do so many loops and corkscrews, the cyan one said arrogantly. But of course no pony saw me. The awesome and amazing Rainbow Dash this morning while I was practicing. Shame.
The orange one, apparently named Applejack, rolled her eyes. You say that every day, Rainbow, she said in a thick country accent. And besides, I don't think any pony's going to be surprised with you after that sonic rainboom of yours. Rainbow Dash landed, took off her sunglasses, and put them on the fence.
Someday I'll make a super cool trick that makes a sonic rainboom look like a simple loop-de-doo.
You think you can do better than breaking the sound barrier and creating a rainbow at the same time? Applejack gave her a deadpan look.
Of course! I just don't know how yet. But I bet I'm going to think of something so cool it'll blow your mind. Twice!
Rainbow Dash jumped up and started flying towards the orchard.
But what about the apple pie that you said you'd treat me to?
The orange mare rolled her eyes again. If it ain't flying, it's food with you. She went ahead of Rainbow Dash. Sure, let's go. The changeling watched them as they went by. Whoever these two ponies were, they must be incredibly dumb. The sonic rainboom was no more than a story for little changeling grubs, and most importantly of all, impossible. These two ponies must have been friends with each other, which was a ridiculous notion to the changeling as well. You can't just give love that came with it to the... You couldn't just give love that came with it to each other indefinitely. You'd run out sometime, and you'd have to leave the hive and your friend to forge some love, and once you got back, you'd probably have forgotten who they were. Then again, these were ponies, and didn't feed on love. Such a strange concept. He noted that the Pegasus had left her sunglasses on the fence, and took them for himself. He'd return it later.
He wasn't a thief. Well, not in that way. He stole love, yes, but stealing stuff from others was a whole different deal. Changelings have standards, you know. At least he could use these sunglasses to cover up his big blue eyes, so the ponies couldn't see them. Now I'm getting somewhere, he thought, as he continued down the road. He had entered Ponyville a few houses back, and had to carefully make his way around. He hadn't found anything useful yet, though. He stumbled onto a round building, decorated in colors ranging from white to purple, with a sign saying, Carousel Boutique, out front. As he looked inside through a window, he could see what was probably the most horrible, revolting, downright ugly thing he had ever seen. This abomination was all white, or at least a very pale shade of gray, and had a purple, curled mane, and a tail which probably took the pony far too long to groom every day. To top it off, she was talking to another pony, a very small one, a foal, they called them, with a curly pink and purple mane and tail. This little pony was looking quite dejected as the elder gave her some kind of lecture about fashion. He'd gotten bored after about 5 words, and took a look around the room. His eyes couldn't help but wander off toward the 2 talking ponies, however. They were white. Oh, so very white. The ugliest color imaginable for changelings. Good-looking changelings were black, which was obviously the prettiest color. Then again, all changelings were black, but that was just a minor detail, because it was pretty much guaranteed that all changelings were good-looking. While the elder pony was still lecturing the younger something about roughhousing with her friends, or some other nonsense, the changeling spotted a safety pin lying just under the window he was looking through. He silently pulled open the window, which he noted was far too easy. Didn't ponies worry about burglars or anything? He quickly slid his hoof through and picked up the safety pin, trying to make as little noise as possible. He sat down and looked at the things he had collected. Sunglasses to cover up his eyes, a cloak and a safety pin to hide the rest of his body from view. Sure, he didn't have a mane and a tail, but he could probably make up an excuse for that. Judging from what he'd seen, these ponies had the intelligence of a door, if you combined the whole village. Surely they'd fall for anything he told them. As he stood up, he rather loudly banged his head on the window he had opened. "Huh? What was that?" he heard a voice say from inside. He jumped and flew to the roof. As he peered down, he could see the pony with purple curls in her mane, looking outside the window. "I don't know, Sweetie Belle. It was probably a bug flying against the window," she said. "Must have been a really big bug then, Rarity," he could hear the younger pony, apparently named Sweetie Belle, say from inside the building. As Rarity pulled her head back inside, she closed the window. "It's funny, though. I don't remember opening this window today," he softly heard coming from inside the house, followed by a loud gasp. "You don't think I'm becoming old, do you, Sweetie Belle?" She proceeded to continue in some sort of hysterical rant about how she was becoming old and ugly. Not that she could get any uglier in the changeling's eyes, but he wasn't exactly willing to find out. He rolled his eyes and jumped from the roof, using his bug's wings to land softly. He threw the cloak around his body, making sure everything was concealed, then used the safety pin to fasten it. After putting on the sunglasses, he checked his reflection in another window. He would have to keep his eyes halfway shut because the glasses didn't cover all of his eyes, but at least he could see. Aside from that, he could now probably pass for a pony, albeit a somewhat creepy one. Sadly, it was getting late, and he was rather sleepy, so he decided to head back towards the forest. He didn't want to be seen sleeping on the street by some pony. They might check what he looks like, or worse, pity him. That would have been completely beneath him. But tomorrow, it was time to forage. So yeah, that happened. I've decided to start reading longer fic because I've been having trouble deciding what the hell to read all the time. So then I've been going with troll fics a lot because they're short and they're funny and they're standalone and they're short and I can just react whatever and I don't have to do them that well or focus. And then someone commented that and said that I kept on doing troll fics, and then I'm like, oh my god, I'm doing way too many troll fics, which is true. So I don't know, but I will start being more thoughtful about long fics and long fic requests. So You got any long fic requests? I guess you can send them to me or something. This was live streamed. I don't know. That doesn't really matter. Let's see. Alright, in the description, I have a link to my new and improved multi-fanfic a day theme. It's still a demo, but I put some really awesome background music on it, even though I didn't change the vocals. I don't know, go check that out if you want, and comment or something, or say, oh, I have an idea for some lyrics, or your lyrics are terrible and I hate you. Go die in a hole, you gay fag. And then I will be butthurt, and then I will go die, but not in a hole because I couldn't find one. I'll go die in my bed crying from starvation and drowning in my own tears. I'll try to eat my tears, but I'll just choke on them. Yes, that will happen. So positive comments, people. Yeah, squad. But yeah. Okay, that's it. I guess. Goodbye.